Welcome Ramley, how are my Rams super fans doing today? Today we're ranking the top 15 greatest Rams of all time. Let's get right into it. At 15, we got quarterback Roman Gabriel. Gabriel was a three-time Pro Bowler with the Rams, winning NFL MVP in 1969 when he led the league with 24 touchdown passes. It's crazy to think that you could actually lead the league with 24 touchdown passes, but that was the NFL in 1969. Between 1967 and 1969, he made 3 Pro Bowls and led the Rams to a remarkable 32-7-3 record with 2 playoff appearances. The biggest knock on Gabriel was that he never won a playoff game, going 0-2 in his career. When retired, he ranked as the Rams' all-time passing leader with over 22,000 yards and 154 touchdowns. At 14, we got offensive guard Tom Mack. Mack played all 13 seasons of his career with the Rams, and he made 11 Pro Bowls. 4 first-team All-Pros and 2 second-team All-Pros. He was the model of consistency in Los Angeles, anchoring the left side of the offensive line for more than a decade. Mack didn't miss a single game either, playing 184 games in his career. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1999. Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch comes in at 13. Crazy Legs was a 3-time Pro Bowler with 2 first-team All-Pros. He is a member of the NFL's 50th anniversary all-time team and the 100th anniversary all-time team. He did literally everything for the Rams in the 1950s, carrying the ball, catching the ball, and playing defense as well. He led the league in every major receiving category in 1951, ranking first in receptions, yards and touchdowns, yards per game, and yards per reception, helping the Rams win an NFL championship. Hirsch was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1967. At number 12, we have quarterback Norm Van Brocklin. Now, Van Brocklin played in a different era of football, but that doesn't diminish his accomplishments at all. He won an NFL championship with the Rams, and he made the Pro Bowl 6 times while playing for Los Angeles. It's crazy to think that he's 4th all-time in Rams history in passing yards despite playing in the 1950s. You know, and throwing the ball wasn't nearly as common as it is today. He was a catalyst for that amazing passing attack from the Rams in the 50s. Norm Van Brocklin was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1971. Coming in at 11 is running back Eric Dickerson. Dickerson would have been a lot higher on this list had he played longer in LA, only playing 4 full seasons with the Rams. But still, he was wildly productive in those 4 seasons. He won Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and made 4 All-Pro teams, leading the league in rushing in 3 out of the 4 years with the Rams. And let's not forget his 2,105-yard season, most of any player in a single season in NFL history, a record that still stands 38 years later and counting. And if someone does break that record, there'll always be an asterisk next to their name because they did that in 17 games what it took Eric Dickerson to do in 16. It's really sad to know that he only played 4 years with us. I wonder how things would have shook out if he stayed his whole career. Eric Dickerson was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1999. At number 10, we have quarterback Kurt Warner. He helped lead the Rams to a Super Bowl 34 victory, topping the NFL in completion percentage 3 times and passing yards once. His 41 touchdown passes in 1999 and 36 in 2001 also led the NFL in those seasons. He finished his career 5th in Rams history in passing yards and touchdowns and 4th in completions. His season-long 97.2 passer rating is still the highest by any Rams quarterback in their history. He's a little low on this list because he only played 6 seasons with the Rams, and really only 3 as a full-time starting quarterback. Also, when asked if he sees himself as more of a Ram or a Cardinal, Warner was quoted as saying, "I would probably say a Cardinal. As strange as that is, with as much success and maybe the best years of my career being with the Rams, but I think a lot of it has to do with just where I ended. The fact that I ended with the Cardinals, I'm still more connected with that team and the front office and stuff there. I still live in Arizona. Hard to say because I love both organizations and both of them were about equal in my career. I would probably say a little bit more the Cardinals." That quote alone has to knock Warner down a peg. I honestly don't blame Warner at all for feeling this way, and I still hold a lot of resentment and a lot of anger towards Mike Martz for treating Warner the way he treated him at the end of his St. Louis career. As you can see by the wall behind me, I still got a lot of love for Kurt Warner. He's still one of my favorite players. Whether he sees himself as a Ram or a Cardinal, I could care less. He's one of the reasons why I became a Rams fan, and his story alone is one of the greatest sports stories in sports history. Kurt Warner was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017. Now, I just wanted to let you guys know that no current Rams will be on this list. I just don't think it's fair to rank them while they are still building on their legacy. Aaron Donald would have been pretty high on this list, but I'll wait for his career to end before I rank him. Players like Cooper Kupp and even Matthew Stafford could potentially find themselves on this list when it's all said and done. But I just don't think it's fair to judge somebody's career before their entire career is over with. But let's get back into the countdown with number 9. Wide receiver Tory Holt. Holt was my favorite Ram growing up. He was the best wide receiver on the Rams, and he was one of the best wide receivers in the league. And that means a lot in an era where you had Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, and Marvin Harrison. Tory Holt was right there with him. And I wanted to be a wide receiver as a kid. I wanted to be just like Tory Holt. Needless to say, I didn't quite achieve that dream. But Holt will forever have a special place in my heart as he was my very first favorite football player. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, a first-team All-Pro, a 2-time second-team All-Pro. He was an NFL reception leader in 2003, 2-time receiving yards leader. He made the 2000s All-Decade team. He had 6 straight 1,300-yard seasons and 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons with the Rams. The fact that Tory Holt has not been elected into the Hall of Fame yet is a travesty. His numbers are better than a lot of wide receivers in the Hall of Fame right now. And I know his gold jacket is coming soon, but he should have gotten it several years ago. At number 8, we have running back Steven Jackson, the Rams' all-time leading rusher with 10,138 yards. Jackson was the epitome of consistency with 8 straight 1,000-yard rushing seasons. His legacy is wildly disrespected because he's a product of playing 9 seasons on terrible St. Louis teams, never actually playing on a squad with a winning record, a few 8-8 teams but not one winning season, yet never complained, and week after week, year after year, giving nothing but maximum effort. Jackson was a 2-time second-team All-Pro and a 3-time Pro Bowler. Jackson might never reach the Hall of Fame, but it's only because of the bad teams he played for. I truly believe if Steven Jackson played for one of the Rams teams a few years before he got into the league, or even one of the Rams teams a few years after he retired from the league, he would easily go down as one of the greatest running backs in history. Fortunately, that's not how it shook out. But he's definitely one of the greatest Rams of all time, and despite playing on such horrible teams, he's still the all-time leading Rams rusher. Now at 7, we have Marshall Faulk. When I originally thought of doing this video, my initial thought was, Faulk at number 1, right? The only reason why he comes in at number 7 is because he spent the first 5 years putting up great numbers for the Indianapolis Colts before getting traded to the Rams and spending his final 7 years in St. Louis. There was many components to the greatest show on turf, but none as important as Marshall Faulk. He was literally the best running back in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. Extremely elusive with the strength to run through any defender if needed, the smarts to never miss a blocking assignment, and when you add in route running in hands of an all-pro receiver, you have one of the most complete running backs in NFL history. 4 Pro Bowls and 3 first-team All-Pros with the Rams. He's the 2000 NFL MVP and a 3-time Offensive Player of the Year. Marshall Faulk was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Not only was Marshall Faulk the greatest Rams running back ever, but I would like to see some lists because he might be top 5 greatest running backs of all time, period. There was literally nothing this man couldn't do. He was literally Superman on that field. Marshall Faulk was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Now, it was very hard for me to put anyone above Faulk on this list, but here we go. Number 6, left tackle Orlando Pace. Yes, I'm giving the offensive lineman a lot of love here because Pace spent 12 of his 13-year career with the Rams, and I put a lot of stock in that. He's a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and he made the Pro Bowl 7 times. He was the blindside protector of Kurt Warner. Pace was the unsung hero on the greatest show on turf. He was an absolute stud in the trenches. A lot of praise goes to Warner, Holt, Bruce, and Faulk, but I don't think none of that is possible without that big fella doing all the dirty work. In an era with Walter Jones and Jonathan Ogden, Pace was right there, neck and neck with 2 of the greatest linemen in NFL history. Pace was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2016. Now, number 5, we got another offensive tackle, Jackie Slater. Slater played a whopping 259 games with the Rams, 51 more than any other player in team history. The Hall of Famer made 7 Pro Bowls, and that number likely would have been a lot higher if not for injuries. Slater remains an all-time great offensive lineman. Slater blocked for 7 1,000-yard running backs during his 20 NFL seasons, including the all-time NFL record set by Eric Dickerson in 1984. He played all 20 seasons of his career with the Rams. I think the way NFL is shaping nowadays with free agency, we might never see that again. Honestly, we might not see many players play 20 seasons, let alone 20 seasons with one team. That's commitment and longevity at its finest. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 4-time second-team All-Pro. Jackie Slater made the Hall of Fame in 2001. Wide receiver Isaac Bruce comes in at number 4, the newest Ram to join the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and it was long overdue if you ask me. He's a franchise all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdown catches, playing 197 games with St. Louis. He was, also obviously a key component to the greatest show on turf. Not only is Bruce the greatest receiver in Rams history, but he's a big reason why the Rams won their first Super Bowl ring. And it wouldn't feel right if I didn't bring up his 1995 campaign, where Bruce finished with 119 catches and 1,781 yards, which was only 67 yards behind the NFL record at the time set by Jerry Rice. He did all that with Chris Miller and Mark Rypien as his starting quarterbacks. Truly one of the best seasons in NFL history. Like I said, Bruce is the newest member of the Rams to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2020. At number 3, we have defensive end Jack Youngblood. Longtime Rams fans know just how good this team's defensive line was in the 1960s and 70s. However, younger fans like myself might not fully appreciate how good the defensive lines were. Let me try to explain it to you guys. Sacks didn't really become an official statistic until 1982. Up until that point, there has been estimates, but because no one has ever been able to give an exact number, players like Youngblood seem to get overlooked when speaking about the greatest pass rushers of all time. But thanks to nearly 30 years of research, Pro Football Reference has added sack totals from players who suited up before 1982. Youngblood recorded 151.5 sacks, which is good for 6th most all time. Even though the first 7 years of his career, he only played in 14-game seasons, playing all 13 years of his career as a member of the LA Rams, earning 7 Pro Bowls and 5 first-team All-Pro selections. Youngblood was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2001. Number 2 is none other than defensive tackle Merlin Olsen. Olsen would play his entire 15-year career with LA, earning 14 straight Pro Bowl selections, which is still a Rams all-time record, and 5 first-team All-Pro selections. He would unofficially go on a total 91 sacks in his career, while also only playing 14-game seasons. You could easily make an argument that Olsen is the greatest Ram of all time. Scary to think that Olsen and Deacon Jones played along the same D-line. Makes you wish the Rams front office today would pair Aaron Donald up with an elite pass rusher. I mean, we did get a taste of that with Von Miller, and we won a Super Bowl. Too bad it was only for 12 games though. Merlin Olsen was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1982. Now, to no one's surprise, the number 1 greatest Ram of all time is none other than defensive end Deacon Jones. Now, Jones was another Ram that was unfortunately great before sacks were a stat. Jones would have finished his career with 173.5 sacks. That would be enough for 3rd all time, only behind Bruce Smith and Reggie White. He would go on to have 2 seasons with 22 sacks, 4 seasons with at least 19 sacks, and he would lead the NFL in sacks on 5 different occasions between 1964 and 1969. And all of this occurred during 14-game seasons. I can't emphasize that enough. He did all of this while every season was only a 14-game season. Deacon Jones has never played a 16-game regular season like Reggie White or Bruce Smith. It's hard to believe that Deacon Jones wouldn't have ran away with the all-time sack record if he got to play 16 season games in an era where sacks were recorded. His signature head slap move was so effective that the NFL outlawed it right after his retirement. He was also credited with coining the phrase sacking the quarterback. In 1999, Jones said to an LA Times reporter, "You take all the offensive linemen and you put them in a bag, and then you take a baseball bat and you beat on the bag. You're sacking them, you're bagging them, and that's what you're doing to the quarterback." Deacon Jones was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1980. Thank you guys all for watching. Now click here for more Rams content.